Hello, I'm excited to welcome you to the Microsoft Secure Technical Accelerator today. During this event, you can dive deeper into several product announcements made just a couple of weeks ago at Microsoft Secure. At Secure, we heard from Microsoft leaders about all the things that are next upcoming with Microsoft Security. Today, we will be diving into some of these exciting announcements with demos, technical deep dives, and everyone's favorite, Ask Microsoft Everything. A few announcements highlights from Microsoft Secure are the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence integration with Microsoft 365 Defender, which enriches incidents and enhances incident management. Microsoft Entra also introduced new government controls, policy protection, and new conditional access authentication. Adaptive protection in Microsoft Purview was also announced to understand how users interact with data, identify risky activities, and automatically tailor DLP control based on the risk detected. So today, you have the unique opportunity to ask our experts all the questions that you have around Microsoft products or the individual sessions that we have are SIEM and XDR, Azure Network Security, Microsoft Priva, Adaptive Protection, and DLP. So our product and engineering teams are super excited and eager to answer all of your questions, so please don't hesitate to ask them. And all the sessions will be made available afterwards on our Microsoft Tech community. And I also encourage you to join the Microsoft Tech community security, identity, compliance and identity hub, so you can actually keep that conversation going even after the event. So now let's dive deeper into our Ask Microsoft Anything on SIEM and XDR. My name is Heike Ritter and I will be the moderator, and I have many people with me. So now please keep your questions coming. Whilst we are waiting for the first question, I think let's everyone introduce them quickly. I will start with Corina, please.
Hi everyone. Hi Heike. Corina Forstein. I'm a product manager on the Microsoft 365 Defender team.
Thank you. So I'm going next with Christopher, please.
Hello everyone. Super excited to be here. I'm Christopher Munoz, Sentinel product manager. I'm part of the customer experience team.
Thank you. And next up is James.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here also. My name is James Key. I am a senior product manager for MDO and focusing with our CXC partner team.
Thank you. And then we have Keith, please.
Hey, everybody. I'm also excited to be here. My name is Keith Fleming. I'm a product manager on the Defender for Cloud Apps team with the customer experience engineering team.
And last but not least, Daniel, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Naim, and I'm the product manager for Microsoft Defender for Identity. So feel free to ask me anything about it.
Thank you so much. So, Corina, I remember that at Microsoft Secure, you were actually part of one of the breakout sessions on SIEM and XDR. Do you want to quickly just summarize what was the session about and what was the content? So we encourage people to ask about it.
Sure. So we were discussing the general concept of XDR and why it's important, why we need it, how it basically brings together multiple different workloads that are typically separate, used to be typically separate in the security environment. We're bringing those together into one coherent product that enables SOC analysts and defenders to see a full end-to-end attack across the different areas and be able to investigate and respond to them as one. We specifically also discussed some new features that we recently released. One of the big ones being attack disruption. So basically automatically being able to identify high-risk incidents, and for the system is able to take disruptive action against those threats in order to block their progress and enable the SOC team to more efficiently respond to them. We also discussed some of the integrations between our XDR solution with Microsoft 365 Defender and Sentinel, which is our cloud SIEM. And I believe we also talked about Defender threat intelligence integration and how that's going to enhance the different incident response and threat protection scenarios. So lots of content there. So yes, would love to answer any questions about that.
Let's bring some questions on. It's your chance. In the meantime, I know that James and we talked offline, but I remember you were super excited about some announcements that were made at Microsoft Secure around something Teams.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great innovation and enhancements happening with security at Microsoft Secure around Microsoft Defender for Office 365. We have collaboration security, which is a new space coming in. We understand that email is not always the primary means of communication with organizations. Microsoft Teams is becoming an extremely leveraged place when it comes to collaboration, communication, and so forth. So we're starting to enhance functionality in there. We're bringing in the report functionality that we've had in Outlook for a while to report phishing and different types of threats that may exist. We recognize if accounts do become compromised, that people may start flooding those channels, flooding those chats with different types of phishing campaigns and so forth. So having that report functionality is great. And we have some other pieces in there in regards to training, being able to take our attack simulator to the phishing campaign for our teams, and even bringing in a lot of new data sets to our advanced threat hunting around the messages.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Corina, I've got a first question for you. So when AIR requests a file be sent to sample submission, what is the logical flow between AIR and Defender AV for requesting and sending the suspicious file to the blob and getting a response back? Does Defender AV send the sample, get a response, and then inform the AIR service? AIR is our automated incidents response.
Right. So AIR is, yes. So AIR is automated investigation and response capability in Microsoft 365 Defender, and it's really about automatically triggering a flow when certain alerts are identified, and that flow is basically taking the same steps that a security analyst might take when investigating an alert of that type, in order to be able to better understand it and take action to it. And the AIR component is attempting to do that automatically for certain types of alerts. There is a interaction between the cloud component of AIR and the endpoint component of AIR that is actually not Defender AV necessarily, but the Microsoft Defender agent on the box. And that interaction includes sometimes a sample collection. Not always. It depends on the scenario, and it depends on what a person analyst typically would do in that scenario. Sometimes the information about that would come from that sample is already available in the cloud, and in that case, there's no need to collect another sample. And actually, AIR does a lot more than just analyze samples. It does a lot of additional kind of forensics type data collection from the box, including things like what processes were running, what new files were created, what changes in the registry were made, and many other parts, trying to understand the full scope of the attack or the impact on that device that is indicated by the alert, and collecting all the information needed in order to be able to implicate the different components, and eventually be able to take automatic response action and remove them and bring the device back to a clean state. So that's generally how AIR works. So short story is that there's not always a collection of a sample. Sometimes there is, depending on the logic. And when there is, then that sample is collected, analyzed, and the information from that goes into the logic used by the cloud component of AIR to decide on the action.
And it's also because I remember coming from that space a little bit. So it's never that the client is just sending something. So it's always triggered for the client to then send this file, as well as if you look, I don't think we have the spider anymore, but if you look at an active investigation and the file is currently being analyzed, it would show that it's waiting for it.
We do. We actually do. So there is an area in the portal experience where these automatic investigations can be tracked. And there's a picture that shows exactly what triggered the investigation. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's more than one alert, what actions were taken. And you can even see like a full log actually of all the actions that AIR takes in this investigation, if you wanted to go in and learn about what exactly it does. And eventually there's going to be a collection of all the artifacts that need to be remediated. In case where you have AIR configured to semi-automatic, it will have a pending action for the analyst to approve that. We recommend fully automated because we think it's actually the best, most efficient way. If you have it fully automated, then it will just go on and perform the remediation actions and log them as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I got another question, and I will just throw it out there, and then maybe everybody raises their hand who would like to take it. So if our organization is using a specific product at the moment and wants to find out the equivalent Microsoft Defender and companion products, who do we talk to in order to review a Microsoft solution and the product that would help replace an existing product? I like that question. Anyone?
I mean, I would say start from your, Microsoft representative, right? Account representative. They will be able to point you to someone who is an expert in this area, and can eventually, I think you need to do an analysis of not just a single product. Because we see a lot of value in an integrated solution for securing the environment, then it really makes sense a lot of the time to take a look at the full set of tools that you're using in your environment and understand what it is that you might need to keep, what you might want to replace. And sometimes there's duplications that can be removed in this analysis. And then it's also a lot of gain, in terms of return on investment. And
we also usually don't recommend to do a feature by feature comparison, just because we learn from many customers that they don't even use all the features and then they just want to have them or not want to have them or something. So really look into what is important to you. And then, so I think a good start is, as Karina said, talk to a Microsoft representative. I think there's right now even on our, I don't know if it was the Microsoft Secure page or this Tech Accelerator, I think talk to a salesperson if you don't have one. So I don't know how big your organization is, if you have one, or you can start a thread on Tech Community and maybe people can help you.
Yeah, and I would also add, just generally, there is sort of areas of security that you might want to, first of all, categorize in, right? There will be products that are related to endpoint security and monitoring, and other products that have to do with identity and cloud, right? So kind of try to first split it in that bigger chunks, and then I think it makes the picture a little bit more clear.
So Daniel, I have a question for you from John. So we are just starting down the Sentinel XDR SIEM SOAR route. We didn't have anything in place before this outside Defender AV. We have some alerts and hunting queries set up, but is there a next step? Where do you see customers going from here? What are the hurdles that are commonly seen from customers?
I think that's a great direction that you're going to, that you're going to, John. And those are sort of questions that if you ask 20 people, you'll get 30 different answers. What is the next step after you configured everything and after you installed everything? You see some alerts, but you don't know what to do. In order to make sure that you enjoy the full benefit of the SIEM XDR storage solution that you mentioned, you need to make sure that you know what is it to offer in terms of those products. For example, it is not just important to respond to alerts that are coming, but also to reduce the posture and to make sure that the alerts are not being triggered from to begin with. So the, the approach that we are taking in Microsoft 365 Defender is to make sure to provide you with all of the information that you have about the posture of your environment, the settings and the configuration that you have in place in order to make sure that those are set in place to reduce the risk and increase the hygiene. Those are come in place of something that we call a secure score, which you can see in the M365 Defender portal. Other than that, when you are done with that and you're reviewing alerts and you're providing data into advanced hunting queries, and you can custom and you can make sure that they are running frequently the custom detection. You can make sure that you have automation sets in place, so you don't have to deal with every alert that is coming. And as Corina mentioned before, you have the capability of setting it to automatic remediation. When the next alert is coming from the same type, we can disable the user, we can contain the device, we can send the email to junk box, etc., etc. So these three main components of an XDR story really make it, in my opinion, 50 or 60% of what we have. We start with the posture, we move into the investigation and the detection experience, and then we continue with the remediation and prevention things from going up again. And then you'll see that there is a loop. Obviously, between all of these, there's a lot of other capabilities like threat intelligence and threat analytics and so on. But if you ask me, these are the three fundamentals that you need to make sure that you're aware of.
Yes, I agree, especially because both, like all of this, like the Sentinel as well as XDR with Microsoft 365 Defender, there's a lot in those products and you don't want to overwhelm yourself. Like start step by step, and there is some tutorials, look at those. There's some videos, training videos in the learning path where you can learn more and more about the product or like the features that you can turn on then. So I've got a question for Christopher. And this is from Yusuf. So I think Yusuf is talking about a small, medium business. When is the right time to introduce a SIEM to my environment? Is Microsoft Sentinel for small, medium businesses or just enterprise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Microsoft Sentinel fits all, right? Microsoft Sentinel is dedicated and designed for all types of businesses. You know, it doesn't matter what is the size. And I say this why, because as the digital state continues to expand, again, we have applications, we have data, we have entities, we have endpoints. We have to have the ability to monitor and be able to detect and respond when it comes to those different entities across your organization. We do have XDR, and again, XDR and Sentinel really work hand to hand to be able to correlate different signals to be able to provide you high fidelity incidents. Sentinel, in my opinion, can definitely be introduced right away, right after you actually configure XDR. Why? Because all those different signals can be ingested and streamed down to Microsoft Sentinel. On top of that, Microsoft Sentinel really provides a robust solution when it comes to collecting data. We do have a long list of data collection vehicles. So whether you have first-party products or you have third-party products, it doesn't matter where that data sits and lives at. We can definitely ingest that data into Microsoft Sentinel. On top of that, Sentinel gives you out-of-the-box content, right? So you can actually make sense of that data by having out-of-the-box analytic rules that focus on Microsoft Threat Intel, that focus on UEBA, that focus on AI and also ML. All of that provides the ability to have more of a robust solution to be able to satisfy the mean time to acknowledge and also the mean time to response. Lastly, I would say that because we have this good synergy between XDR and SIEM, we do have a great way to use Microsoft Sentinel playbooks to be able to create automation rules and to be also have the ability to remediate any incidents as well. So honestly, it can be introduced at any given point. Why? Because we do have a great synergy between both products.
And I think totally right. Depends, of course, on the organization, right? Like, do you have additional data that you would like to get correlated with other signals? Like, do you need the SIEM because you want to correlate additional data and have one incident, or if you have just a firewall, then just look at the firewall logs. But if you have additional, then I think it makes sense to bring them all together and use a tool. James.
Yes, I want to just add a little extra context to this. I think one of the biggest selling points for Microsoft is our ecosystem, our integrated capability of all of our signals coming in, our Microsoft 365 Defender, and making sure that those Defender areas are well configured and optimized will make sure the telemetry that is coming in is optimized. It comes down to, do you think a 2 megabyte file of telemetry and data is more important than 2 gigabytes? People may say 2 gigabytes is more because it's more data, but it's all about the informationalizing of it and to make sure it's actually really good data to begin with. So configuring those pieces that pipe into it is critical.
Thank you. So I've got another question for Christopher. It's about how do I use Microsoft Sentinel when I'm using a different EDR solution, such as something else?
Yeah, honestly, we can. Whether it is Sophos or any other EDR, you could definitely use Microsoft Sentinel, as James just mentioned, because we are able to bring integrated signals. We are able to make sense of that data. So it does not matter which EDR you have in your ecosystem. As part of Microsoft Sentinel, we could definitely bring those signals in. We can create out-of-the-box analytic rules for it. We can create custom signals for it. And then on top of that, we also have user entity behavior analytics as well that can also really bring in additional context when it comes to any anomalies when it comes to that endpoint as well.
And I think, of course, it all depends on the connector that is available for that other solution. And I think the beauty about, I just want to make some, commercials for our solution, is that beautiful connector that has a bi-directional synchronization. So basically, you do something in Sentinel, it gets back to Microsoft 365 Defender and the other way around. So, and I don't know, of course, how that connector was being created for other EDR solutions. But yes, you can use it. And it gives you additional value because it adds all the analytics and the intelligence from Sentinel on top of that other data. So whilst I'm waiting for some more questions here, Keith, was there any announcement made for Defender for Cloud Apps or anything, if not, that you really enjoyed listening to at Microsoft Secure?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. We've recently been going through a real shift in the traditional CASB market, which is traditionally what the Defender for Cloud Apps has covered in the past. So we've seen more of an overall transition to SaaS security at all up. So at Microsoft Secure, there were actually two major announcements. So the first was SaaS Security Posture Management, which allows us to, as Christopher was talking earlier, it allows us to shift left towards prevention. So we're able to identify misconfigurations in your SaaS applications, such as ServiceNow and Salesforce. And then we have a lot of investments around that where we're getting ready to add more for like GitHub and Okta and continuing to expand around that. Additionally, we've also announced new capabilities around app governance, which allows you to see, service principals that are at use in your environment, because they've really become a major attack vector. When people get permissions, you want to make sure that those permissions are, they're not overprivileged, they're not expired. So we've been doing a lot around that as well. So really, really excited about both of those features. Thanks, Heike.
Thank you so much. And I think, another question for Christopher. Are you ready to take that? Good. First of all, hi, Lasse. So are there any special considerations to make when building data collection rules? I'm ingesting firewall data into native tables via Logstash, but are there any guidelines or best practices to follow when working with large amount of data?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Again, building data collection rules is a very strategic conversation. Why? Because at the end of the day, we want to filter out the data that we're ingesting into Microsoft Sentinel. For Logstash, we actually do have a out-of-the-box supported plugin for Logstash. When it comes to creating those data collection rules, you need to make sure that you are specifying which endpoints or entities you have in your environment that you want to go ahead and actually filter out, whether it be a event ID, things of that matter. You need to make sure that you don't duplicate data collection rules. I do see oftentimes that customers, they do have a data duplication problem, and that could really, I would say, make it complex when it comes to building analytic rules in Microsoft Sentinel. We do have a Logstash Microsoft Sentinel white paper actually available online that gives you a step-by-step blueprint when it comes to how to configure it.
Thank you so much. Just because it's such an important topic, and I think a super question that John brought up, and we all added a few words to where we think we should start, about how to start with an XDR and SIEM SOAR solution. Corina,
Yeah,
do you have maybe more
I
words?
I thought it was a really good question. So maybe a few more kind of tips on that. Sounds like at least John's case and maybe many others on the call, if you're just starting with this notion of XDR, is that you're starting from an endpoint perspective to begin with, Defender AV or something like that. So I would recommend starting with what you have and kind of expanding that over time. So if you're starting with Defender AV, start with your EDR next, right? So turn on Defender for Endpoint, and it's very easy. On Windows, you don't have to install it. It's just there. You turn it on. And start learning about how alerts look like, how incidents look like, what to do with them, and so on. And then you can over time, first of all, expand to other XDR workloads. Probably identity would be next, and then cloud applications, Office, whichever is more important for you. And to determine what's more important, maybe an exercise that we know many of our customers do is take a threat-focused approach, threat pivot approach. So think about what are the main threats that you are worried about out there, whether it's your industry, specific to your industry, or specific to your organization. There's a lot of information in our product from Threat Analytics about emerging threats and the most common ones out there, and with Defender TI even more. So you can learn from there a little bit about the landscape and pick things that are most important to you, and then map that to what are the things that you want to have in your environment in order to protect from those types of threats. There are capabilities, I think, in Sentinel for mapping detections to the MITRE map. And also from a prevention perspective, there's a lot of content in Threat Analytics to understand what you can prevent to begin with. So that too. And then I would say SOAR, so like automation, is probably a more advanced case, right? So once you get your things going, you understand how you handle your alerts, how your SOC handles your alerts, then you start an incidents, then you start thinking about automation. Where can I add more automation in order to be more efficient and save time for the SOC? So
wonderful. Okay, so I think we answered the questions that we were provided from you. So thanks everyone for participating. Of course, thanks for you watching, as well as all the experts here, either on camera or the ones in the background that were helping answering the questions in the chat. Thanks everyone, and I hope you stay and keep enjoying Microsoft Secure Technical Accelerator. Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.